Right, so the Gisozi Genocide Memorial Site is one of those places. If you ever visit Rwanda, you should put on your agenda as a place to visit. If you haven't, or you think you can never be able to get that particular chance, then today I want to take you through this place. It's a place rich of history as far as the issues concerning the genocide against the Tutsis is concerned. So come with me. Right, so the first wall that you meet when you enter the Genocide Memorial Site right here in Gisozi is this particular wall right here, which takes you through Rwanda before the genocide, how Rwandans used to live, and of course it gives you a historical background. It's a country beautiful with forests, lakes, you know, children were laughing, markets of people, dramas, and of course this was a time when, you know, the country was really intact at this particular point. And if you can see the unity that was there during this particular time. The old people would you know, spend some time together. Children and mothers would have time together, and there were a lot of economic activities. You could see even from social gatherings, you know, how they would spend their time and leisure time. And if you just come with me and I take you through what really happened now when the colonialists you know, came to the country, and Rwandans are actually saying that they did not choose to be colonized. The Germans arrived first in 1895 up to 1916, and of course during the World War I the country was occupied by Belgian troops who in 1923 were granted a mandate by the League of Nations to govern Rwanda and Urundi. Okay, and of course if you look at this particular picture, you'll definitely see what transpired when the colonialists came through. And for some of you who have actually been asking, how did that particular you know, ID look like during those days? This is definitely one of those pictures that would actually show you how that ID used to look like. It would actually ask which race you are. If you are Tutsi, you know, it would actually show there. If you are Hutu, it would show there. If you are Mutua, it would show there. So you would actually cancel the ones that you are not and leave out the one that you are, based on what the colonialists actually wanted to appear there. You can see what used to happen here. They would measure the size of your nose just to ensure that they are able to identify you based on the size of your nose. So this is where it actually began, the division, you know, and the seclusion of people based on tribes. Of course, it's a wall that shows you how it all happened, where you had the first president of Rwanda and the second president of Rwanda, the late Juvenal Habyarimana. And of course, when you look at all this, this is what was happening. The planning had already started. The society was already divided. The training of you know, young militia had already started. If you come through to this particular side, you'll already start seeing, you know, what statements that had already started being talked about. Okay, this is Hassan Geze, who actually said, and it is actually quoted there, "We say to the Inyenzi cockroaches that if they lift up their heads again, it will no longer be necessary to go fight the enemy in the bush. We will start by eliminating the internal enemy. They will disappear." These are some of those divisive you know, messages that started coming out there from those who are purported to be influential during 1994. So you can see the killings that already started. Some of the images here might be very graphic, so I would just like to warn you, these are graphic images of the deaths that already started happening when the Tutsis started being killed. So there was a lot of propaganda during the period before and even during the genocide against the Tutsis. If you could look at this particular wall right here, this is where the information is. You've heard about the popular Hutu 10 commandments, you know, and all Hutus were supposed to live by these particular commandments, and they were published in 1990. Number one, it would just say, all Hutus must know that the Tutsi woman, wherever she may be, is serving the Tutsi ethnic group. In consequence, any Hutu who does the following is a traitor: acquires a Tutsi wife, acquires a Tutsi mistress, acquires a Tutsi secretary or dependent. Very, very divisive kind of information that was aimed at ensuring that the side of the Hutus stood against the Tutsis. We're going to join other groups of people who are actually being taken through the historic background of this particular country, and of course what happened right here. That's the wall that shows you all the propaganda that took place right here. Now this wall here shows you what happened now during the genocide itself against the Tutsis. If you look around here, you would see some of the prominent people who stood against the genocidal regime and how they were killed. Right here is the late Prime Minister Agatha, who was actually a Hutu leader and in the opposition, who came from Butare, and she actually stood against the genocidal regime and she was killed. If you look down here, you would see the tools that were used, the instruments that were used to massacre, to kill the Tutsis during the genocide. And if you look at this particular chain here, and the chain and the padlock, there's a photo that follows that which actually explains how it was used and who it was used on. When you look at here, first from the right and at the fourth from the right, before the genocide they were chained together, and this particular chain is what was used to chain them together, and when their corpses were actually retrieved, they were still tied together. So I'm going to take you through this other side right here, where we have videos that usually go through the whole process of what really happened. You know, this shows you the gross, you know, the brutality that took place in churches. This is exactly what happened in churches, where Tutsis ran to seek refuge and they were killed in there. Very disturbing images. Right, so this wall here takes you through all the devastation of the impact that the genocide against the Tutsis had on Rwanda, you know, from the issues of orphans to the issues of bringing down the economy of the country. There was a lot of devastation in the country during this particular period. So I'm going to take you through the other side, which now shows you the post-genocide against the Tutsis right here at the Gisozi Genocide Memorial Center. Right, so after the genocide against the Tutsis took place, it was time to seek for justice and to seek for peace. And the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR, which was actually based in Arusha, was established by a UN Security Council. And of course, it was through this particular tribunal that, you know, we had some convictions that were done. And one of those people was John Kambanda, who was the Prime Minister in the 1994 interim government, who actually pleaded guilty and was convicted of genocide and crimes against humanity. He is actually currently serving a life sentence in Mali. We also have another one who's called Colonel Theonest Bagosora, who was a cabinet director to the Minister of Defense in April 1994. He actually was perceived of being one of the genocide masterminds. He was sentenced to 35 years by the ICTR, and of course is actually currently in prison. One of the very, very key ways of also seeking justice was the creation of the Gacha Courts, the local courts, where you would have you know, perpetrators being brought to come and testify. And the goal of this was actually at this particular time of the inception of the Gacha Courts, which took place in 2002. There were 120,000 genocide suspects in overcrowded prisons, and the aim of this was to try and address this particular issue. And the Gacha Courts aimed at promoting truth, peace and justice and healing, plus of course you know, forgiveness and reconciliation. And it really was one of those particular ways of seeking justice that has been lauded. You know, Rwanda has been lauded for one of these particular moves that it carried out. I'm going to take you through another section right here, which we have other exhibitions that are happening right here. And of course, at this particular place, there's a lot of somber mood right here, where you have pictures of the victims of the genocide against the Tutsis, and different family members come right in here to just mourn them, and go through this process. It's a really sad moment for many people who usually come in here. Now, the genocide against the Tutsis was not just restricted to adults. Children too were not spared either. And right here at the Gisozi Genocide Memorial Center, we also have a specific section dedicated to the memory of the children who were killed during the genocide against the Tutsis. I'm going to take you through this particular section. Very great pictures of very adorable children who sadly lost their lives in the genocide against the Tutsis. And below each of the pictures is a description, you know, with the name and age and what used to be their favorite sports, activities, best friends, and the cause of death. If you just go through, this one was called Bernardine, and Bernardine's favorite sport was football, and he used to love taking tea. His favorite food was rice, and he was very clever at school, and he was actually killed by machete at a church called Nyamata. If you can just also go in here. It's the same also right here where you have the picture of the child, what they loved to do, the age. He was only 10 years old and he was actually tortured to death. So a lot of pictures right here with the descriptions of the children who were killed during the genocide against the Tutsis. It's a very big room where you have the pictures right there. Same applies to Patrick, who was only 5 years old and really loved riding bicycles. Favorite food was chips, meat, and eggs. And he was actually hacked by a machete. So the kids were really young, you know, and this one was only 15 months old, barely a year and a few months old. And it's called Fabrice Chemezo, who was killed at Muhoro Church, where they had actually gone to seek refuge. And there you have it. It is a very resourceful particular center where there is full information concerning the history of Rwanda as far as the genocide against the Tutsis is concerned. Officially inaugurated in 2004, home or the final resting place to over 250,000 Tutsis who were found and were killed around Kigali city. So should we be learning lessons from Rwanda's genocide against the Tutsi? A big yes. And are we really learning as far as issues concerning incitement and ethnic-based violence? That's a question that you should be answering yourself when it comes to those particular matters. From the Gisozi Genocide Memorial Center right here in Rwanda, my name is Eugene Anangwe, reporting.